The time now is 2 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So we are just going to go ahead and get started. As you can see here, our CEO, Brian Coester, he's the one who will be conducting the webinar today, is getting everything set up in regards to the presentation, so just bear with us for one quick moment. However, I'll just go ahead and introduce myself and take a moment to summarize what's going to be covered today, and then I'll let Brian go ahead and get everything started. So here we go. My name is Crystal. I am the Director of Marketing and Social Media here at Coester Appraisal Group. Once again, I'd like to thank you all for being in attendance today. Hopefully, we're not having any audio problems and everyone here can hear me. If you cannot, please feel free to send a message in the chat portion of your GoToWebinar toolbar and let me know that I'm coming in clear. Also, as I mentioned before, Brian Coester, our CEO, will be conducting the webinar today entitled Fighting Repurchase Requests. We know that you all deal a lot with repurchase requests, also known as buybacks, and they typically come with a lot of risk. So instead of carrying the burden, and the loan is often passed along. So we took the time today to put together a presentation to show you how to effectively rebut those buybacks that are submitted, and just to give you a couple of tips that hopefully you'll be able to take away with you and effectively rebut those. So I'm just going to go ahead. It looks like Brian is getting everything in order, so hopefully he can check in with me. Brian, can you hear me clearly?
No, I think we're good to go. I think we're good to go, Crystal. I think there was an error with the trying to do presentation slide thing, and didn't always work out the way I wanted to, but definitely we're good to go now. So, Crystal, can you see the screen properly?
Yes, I can see everything is coming in clearly. It looks good to go to me as well. And just one final thing before we go ahead and get started. If you all have any questions at all during the presentation, feel free to message that in the chat portion of your GoToWebinar, and we will address those and have Brian answer your questions at the conclusion within about the last 15 minutes of the presentation so that you all can get a chance to get your questions answered. So I'm just going to go ahead and turn everything over to Brian and let you go ahead and get started.
All right, well, thank you so much, Crystal. Like Crystal said, we do a lot of topics on, a lot of webinars, a lot of educational stuff for a lot of different people on a lot of different things, and this is something where we have really been able to separate ourselves from the competition and from just the general business practice of handling appraisal-related repurchases, because we do so much and because we're so involved with the day-to-days of the repurchase request, credit risk, whether they're due to fraud, whether they're due to misrepresentation, or whether they're due just to opinion. What I'm going to do is go into a lot of these. Right now, this will be relatively fast-paced. All of our webinars, this is being recorded, so we'll be available online. And also, like all of our webinars, if you have any questions, you can happily email me, and we'll be happy to ask any of those for you. So again, let's get right into it. Questions we answer: what are repurchases? What should you focus on when submitting, when rebuttaling them? What should you include your package? What if you don't win? And what can I do to prevent repurchases? So one part of it is kind of a best practices. One part of it is, okay, well, you got it, now what are you going to do? And then another part is, okay, what should you focus on? It's not as much as a science as you think. There's a lot of art to it, and there's a lot of some things that are obvious. So what are repurchases? When an investor has found appraisal-related repurchase is when an investor has found an issue with the original appraisal and perceived the appraisal as being fraudulent or misrepresentation of the subject at the time of inspection. Because of the received fraud, they are seeking reimbursement for the file. Essentially, they're returning it to the store. So it's the same thing. You buy something, you don't like it. You think it's misrepresented. If you don't like the food at a restaurant, you send it back. Same thing. It's just this is a much bigger file with a lot more money, and something where it can cause a tremendous amount of agony to a potential to a mortgage lender or a servicer, to whoever's involved with the number. They're essentially saying exactly that. Just because they're requesting a repurchase doesn't mean it's valid. About 80% of the purchases are not factual based. Most of it are opinion. Example would be you got a loan value at 100%. I mean at 80% at $100,000. Then all of a sudden they say, well, now it's worth $95,000. So you would need PMI. Because you need PMI, and you didn't get it, it's considered, it doesn't meet their guidelines. Because it doesn't meet their guidelines, you have to buy it back. So that's something where it's very arguable. It's not like, okay, well, this isn't a picture of the front of the house. This is something where it's really, somewhat questionable. And they can really put it back to you any way they want. So it's not like something where, there's a best practices, but it's not something like they have to follow it. Meaning, if an investor feels like their loan isn't 100% represented properly, they feel like that they want to put this back, they have the full right to do that. So it's not necessarily like all of them are going to be legitimate. And with the proper documentation, a large number of appraisal-related repurchases can be rebutted in one. It's not that difficult. Receiving repurchases. Typical starts with a claim package outlining the issues and preventing. They usually have a claims letter, the review appraisal, original appraisal, supporting documentation under other miscellaneous items. Could be a loan file. If it's a credit, we do a lot of credit risk repurchases. If it's a credit file, they might have that. Review appraisal, original appraisal. They don't have all of this all the time. This is just typical. So what I'm outlining for you is just, out of 1,000, maybe 700 will have this kind of typical package. There's going to be some where it's just a claims letter. There's going to be some where, it's a claims letter, original appraisal. There's going to be some where it's claim letter and review appraisal. And you're going to say, well, where's the original appraisal? They might not have a copy of it. They might have just found this original review or something. They may have just found this review that didn't support their value. And all of a sudden now it's in default. Now they want reimbursement, and this is all they have. So it's not 100%, going to be the same thing every time. We do have samples. We have sample repurchases package. We have sample rebuttal letters. We have sample everything that we'd be happy to give to you. We're not going to show them on this presentation just because of this is being recorded and there's potential legal issues of showing if somebody somehow traced it back because they're actual examples. So if you want a copy of it, you can email me. I'm going to put my email address as well as Crystal's and Bud's, who handles our credit risk, on here, and then you can get back to us, and we'll be happy to send you a sample. What we do, what did you receive? So you get this package. It includes something very similar to this, where it has a claims letter, review appraisal, has original appraisal, supporting documentation, other miscellaneous items. May have an AVM, may have a desktop, may have some MLS listings, all those types of things. So what you want to do is you want to essentially take this package, which, it could be 10 pages, could be 5 pages, could be 300 pages. We've seen some that are 150 pages. So, it could be something very big, could be something relatively small. But the first thing you want to do is review all documentations. When they review all of the documentations, just see what's in the package, which separates facts from opinion, where a lot of stuff they'll include is opinion-based and some of it is factual-based. Order a review appraisal. That's something where not everyone does it, but it's a best practice. It's where if you need another appraiser's opinion, contact the original appraiser, which, again, that is something where not everyone does it, but I would 100% do it. If you've got a situation where the review appraiser, you've got a situation where the rebuttal process or the appraiser is being said that he's, fraudulent and he's not doing his proper, he's not, representing the appraisal property, give him a chance to look at it. Give him a chance to rebut and get his opinion. They can provide a lot of value for information. And often they'll do it for free. So it's not necessarily like you're going to have to pay a whole bunch of money. Often they'll do it. But, again, get a review. Contact the original appraiser, gather all information. Here's just kind of like a general overview. Reviewing all documentation. So some questions you want to ask. What do they provide? The size of the information will tell you something. If they have 2 or 3 pages, probably not going to be that strong of a package. If they have 50 or 60 pages, maybe it's a little stronger. If they have 150 pages, it's something where it may be almost overwhelming, where they're just trying to overwhelm you. That's kind of like a little trick appraisers used to do, like fraudulent appraisers used to do back in the day, is where they, if you have 4 comps and they all support the value, you might kind of question the appraisal, especially if it's on the higher side. But if you have like 20 comps that all support the value, then who's this to argue with the appraisal? I mean, there's 20 comps that are all within a mile. You know, how can you say it's not? It may not be accurate at all. It may be totally misrepresenting the property. However, that's something to be playing into, where if they provide clear, concise information, 10 or 15 pages, slam dunk, it may be very accurate. If they provide 3, they may not have that much, or they may have a lot of evidence that they don't want to disclose it, or if they provide 150, it could mean they have a lot, but if also could mean they're just trying to overwhelm you with information, so you just give in. Copy of the field review. Without the field review, they might not have been able to get an appraiser to disagree. That's something that we're seeing a lot, where you've got a builder who did a new home construction back in 2005. They aren't able to get in contact with the builder to verify that the sales were accurate. However, at the same time, they're not able to get a review on it because all the sales weren't on the MLS, and the appraiser is not going to necessarily disagree with the value. So they don't really have a positive yes or a positive no, but they're going to just see if they can make something happen. So if they don't provide you with a field review, that's a good, or a desk review or something that another appraiser has said, they're just writing all this out. They may have just made all this up. So it's not like something that's totally uncommon. Specific claims. You want to get specific, you want to look at their specific claims when they do it. So the more specific, the stronger the message, the more general, the less they have. And when I say that, I'm saying if somebody says comparables were not the most similar at the time of inspection, okay, that's a very general claim. If they say, comp 1 is not the right photo and is located in a different county, that's very specific, where that's factual-based information and should be taken very seriously versus like the general claims. You can just say, it's a matter of opinion and relatively easily. Original appraisal, again, if they don't have it, they might not provide it. They might not have it. Again, this is a very biased point. I mean, this is a very biased opinion. This is not something where this is 100% factual base. It's essentially like when I say hot potato mortgage style. You go on our website, there was an article in NBA News link about that I wrote about this essential scenario where, no one wants to take blame for this. So this is not a, unbiased, opinion of value like an appraisal would be or something like that. They're really trying to slam this thing back home to somebody, and because of that, you've got to really defend yourself of that nature. This is not 100% unbiased. These are very biased. I don't want to buy this back. I don't want to have to deal with the REO or, have to deal with the loss, and I want to put this wherever I can. And so because of that, you should look at that in that way, where half of what they say is true, the half of what they say isn't true, and then there's another kind of half that no one really knows that you've really got to separate. Again, this goes into a lot of things where you got to really separate your facts from what's just opinion-based. Examples of facts-based. Comparables are all 5 miles away when the subject is marked suburban. Conflict with general appraisal guidelines. Permits were not pulled for the rear addition. The subject had Lacey County tax records attached. Data sources say that MLS, even though homes didn't sell through rumors. These are very facts-based. Permit, illegal permit. They converted the garage illegally. Appraiser did not recognize that. Boom, done. No questions asked. Why? They didn't pull a permit. House doesn't meet guidelines for the county. It's unsaleable property. Essentially, the county would either fine them or condemn the property if they didn't get it inspected. Safety hazard, no chance of fighting that. But most of them don't have that. Why? Because A, they don't really know. They haven't seen the property. B, they're probably not going to be able to pull or see the tax records and all that kind of stuff, and they don't necessarily have the staff to do those type of research, but those are very facts-based. Examples of opinion-based. The subject has a sloping roof, 27.5 feet instead of 30 feet as stated in the OA. OA stands for original appraisal. The reality is the reviewer didn't physically measure the house, and they don't really know. So that's something where you see that a lot, where they argue with square footage, where tax record says it's 1,000 square feet, appraiser says 1,100 square feet. 100 times $35 a square foot, $3,500. That difference made the difference with no PMI. That's a very easable thing to argue. Reality is what? They didn't measure it. So they don't know 100%. The appraisers only want to measure it unless they're going to actually, here's a certified plat from an engineer who measured the property, and, this is certified that this is accurate. Then they would have something to stand on. Whereas they didn't measure it, the appraiser measured it. This is all just kind of made up stuff. Tax records not reliable source of information. This is something where you're going to see these conflicting things. We had a situation where they said that, the appraiser did not use the most recent comparables available, and the appraiser, although they could verify that the sales were actual comparable sales that sold, because they were not listed on the MLS, none of the information could be verified. Because none of the information could be verified, there's alternative comparables that should be used. It was a builder sale, so there's not going to be any MLS. And then they said that they said that's like claim number one. Then claim number two was that they saw that comparable number 3 did have a basement even though the appraiser said he didn't, and they verified that via the tax records. So basically what they said is the first claim, they said tax records aren't accurate because it doesn't allow you to verify information, and then they said that the comparable number 3 is inaccurate because they verified additional information via the tax records. So they just conflicted themselves. That's something where that's fairly common. Whether we kind of have these, again, you read it and you think, oh, crap, they got us, and then you kind of break it out, and it's not really the case at all. So remember that. No inferior photo included into the commentary was renovated. This is all very opinion-based. General statement, appraisers use comparables that are too old for the subject market area. Like, okay, well, that's very relative. 101% rule. I made this up. So, again, this is something where, 101% rule, where they will find the 1% wrong with the appraisal and give that 100% of the attention on the letter. So, essentially, they're looking for one thing that's wrong, and then they're going to give that 100% of the attention. Because of this, you have to know what actually is being said in context to everyday appraisal guidelines. So it's not necessarily that these aren't the best comparables. That's not kind of irrelevant if they're the best comparables, because that's a very opinionated thing. So it's everything's within context. Comparables are over 5 miles away, which is not acceptable. Okay, that could be true in an urban area. It could not be true because it's a unique home. So it's all within context. It's very, very deceiving because each appraiser is very opinion-based. So because of that, you have to make sure that you're really focusing on getting accurate information to back and getting accurate information that's reflective of facts-based stuff, not just kind of made-up stuff. When review the review appraisal. So after you get back the review, so you've already reviewed the claims letter, you've already separated fact from fiction. Now you're going to actually review the appraisal. You're going to look at what they're stating is wrong. Remember, because the appraiser says something is wrong doesn't mean it's really wrong. Again, this is the review appraisal done on your original appraisal. So you've got the claims letter, you reviewed that, now you're going to review the review appraisal. The review appraisal isn't necessarily right. And again, I'm not saying anything unethical, but I'm saying that the review appraisals that we see tend to be very conservative, almost overly conservative to the point of unrational, where it's something like they're just like, get the lowest value possible type deal. So because of that, it should be looked at with a very biased approach. Look for inconsistencies. Here's some examples of inconsistencies. We had an issue where it was kind of funny where they took a picture of the wrong house, and they did a review file on the wrong house. And it's just like you're looking at this thing, and they said, we're reviewing this, so we think, oh, crap, they got us now. The original appraiser took a picture of the wrong house, and this, and this, and this. And then we looked at our original appraisal. We looked at our review, and then we looked at their review, and then we realized, and then we went online and looked at some MLS, and we realized the review from the investor took a picture of the wrong house. And everything was wrong. It said, the subject misrepresented the property because it was siding, and it was brick, and in reality it was brick. Subject misrepresented the square footage. Well, they appraised the wrong house. So we instantaneously won that one, but it's something where, you might be looking at this thing and saying, oh, crap, they got us. This appraisal's wrong. No, they might be wrong, too. Too conservative. Sometimes when they take a position that's too strong to one side enables a reasonable counteroffer, which in your favor, as long as the appraisal is not intentionally misrepresented. Again, you guys can read it, but again, there's some investors who are notorious for being conservative. You know, appraiser appraised it at 120, they come in at 15 grand or something like ridiculous. They use like the 3 lowest REO sales. So again, it's the Aurora of legitimacy is something that you have to overcome. Just because it's on a form, just because it's appraised, doesn't necessarily mean it's 100% legitimate. Ordering your review. So this is not your standard, you know, you've already, let's do 3 steps. So you've already, 1, got the claims, you've already done 2, you reviewed the review appraisal. So now 3 is you're going to order your review. Ordering your review is something where it's not just your typical slam dunk, field review, agree, disagree type stuff. This is very important. This is basically how you're going to get your information. Okay, so this should be taken very seriously. This is a phone call. This is not an email blast. This is not a broadcast order. This is not, you know, the first vendor who accepted, oh, my buddy Bob, who knows how to do appraisal. This is a phone call to a appraiser who understands the process, who understands what, because you need data, you need lots of it that's very relevant, and you need to find out what's going on. And the problem is that you don't have access to this information, regardless of if you have the core logics and the data clicks and the, you know, ABM super duper things. You don't have access to this information that the appraisers have, nor do you have the ability to interpretate the information the way the appraiser does. So you're going to need their help. And you got to understand that this is for internal QC. There will be other parties relying on it, and it could be used for against the client. And it's also let the appraiser know that something like a rebuttal will be written on behalf of this. Again, you should be verbally told what to do. Give them as much detail. You want written content. You do not want checkboxes. You want written information on why the appraiser is good or why the appraiser is bad. Because remember, there's multiple parties who are involved. So, like, you know, if you get a buyback from you know, Fannie Mae, well, there's a whole stream of people who may be potentially liable. So not necessarily you're going to be stuck with this thing. Same thing, reverse side. If you're trying to push something back to somebody, you know, if all of a sudden you get this appraisal and it's kind of, you know, bad appraisal, he really did screw up, well, you might be able to push that back to the appraiser. You might be able to push that back to the appraisal management company. You might be able to push that back to the correspondent, or, you know, depending on who you bought it from or you sold it to, or, you know, there's multiple options. So getting all the facts is the most important thing. You don't want to try to swing this thing and just, you know, stand in your garden and say there's no ease, there's no ease, there's no ease. I mean, there's a certain point where you guys say, okay, this is really wrong. What can we do about it? There's situations where we can go all the way back, you know, to the original appraiser, or even the builder or the title company or somebody who is responsible for this actually happening when reviewing the files. So you want to get all the information. Don't be trying to persuade the appraiser to do something specific, like get, make sure the value comes in high or something along that line, or be very aggressive, or just send me everything that's great. There's something to be said to that for the claims letter, but not necessarily the review appraisal. You want as much written information as possible, copy of MLS, additional supplemental comparables, fax that information. You do not want checkbox. Again, this is very specific stuff. There's just some review standards. You want front, side, street, or any adverse site conditions if rear fill. You just want it all. Again, just because you have it doesn't mean you're going to send it back to the original investor. It doesn't mean you're going to send it back with the claims letter, but you want it all. Because the thing is that you want to make sure that you're covering your basis. You want to map the comparables used, map supplemental comparables, copy all MLS, the original appraisal, and the supplement. OA stands for original appraisal. So you wanted all the information. Typical 5 to 10 day turnaround time to focus on your accuracy and not rushing the issue. Again, $250 to $500 depending on the level of difficulty. It's really just kind of depend. Okay. So then you got to this point. We're going to move relatively quickly because we got a couple more things to cover, and we don't want to take this thing over 30 minutes because it just kind of dies out after 30 minutes. You want to get all the information if they agree or disagree. Again, doesn't mean you're dead in water if they disagree, but the why is the most important thing. It's not necessarily agree, disagree, but why. You're not necessarily going to send them the review appraisal, but you need it to kind of rebut what they're going to, you need it to just kind of get all your facts. So it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to send it, but you just want to know why. So contacting the original appraiser for information should be done on a case-by-case basis. Again, if you think there's fraud, like really fraud, like this dude really did the deal and messed this up, I wouldn't contact him because there's a lot of issues that he could do to try to get out of it. If you've got legitimate fraud, like this guy really did it, I wouldn't say to contact him. If it's questionable and you think you can get him to rebut it, I would go ahead and contact him. Typically, it's free. Typically, they're more than happy to reinstate their position, provide additional commentary, as well as provide some insight to the review, to the OA. I mean, to the review done by the investor, is what's going on. And a lot of times, it's just opinion. A lot of times, you know, it's kind of difficult to explain 100%, but a lot of times just some confusion on some things. And then sometimes if they're not responsive, which we had issues where all of a sudden they go MIA, that tells you something too, that there might be some legitimate issues that they don't want to address. They also have they're a good resource, great resource. Again, they're involved as much as they are. They're all kind of, they're involved with this issue as much as you are, because ultimately if you've got to buy it back, and guess what, you don't want to be stuck with this thing, so you might go back to them. And if they can provide some information up front, then you might be okay. And generally speaking, they'll be acceptable. Writing the rebuttal. So now let's kind of overview the process. So you've looked at the claims letter, you've reviewed the claims letter, you've talked to the, you've looked at the original appraisal, you've ordered your field review, you've talked to the appraiser, you've talked to the original appraiser. So you're like 2-3 days into this puppy. Again, this is, you know, people say, well, that's a lot. Well, yeah, but they also want, you know, a check for $240,000. So it's not like they're asking for, you know, 20 bucks. So they're asking for a lot because it is a lot, and it should be taken very seriously, and it should be something that's very involved. If you've got a company or a process to handle this, you know, outside of your company, that's great. If you're handling it internally, it should be, you know, somebody who really knows what they're doing. This is a big deal. More often than not, an experienced professional who has direct experience writing rebuttals should attempt this feat. More often than not, using a third-party due diligence firm to compose a rebuttal is the best option. Why? Efficiency. I mean, we do these things all day. Also, just, you know, we have additional resources that you might not have. And then secondly, this is going to take a long time. This is not necessarily going to be, it's kind of like processing where you're just kind of waiting on a whole bunch of stuff from different people. But you're talking maybe, you know, a week to 2 weeks of total time and working with the file, maybe 20 minutes a day. You want to gather all the information, rebut every claim. Each claim needs to be directly rebutted. Do not ignore anything. Provide supporting information, review appraisal, OA response, QC done at the time of origination, underwriting notes, anything you can provide, supplemental information to support your value, examples of rebuttal statements or, you know, all comparable rules. You guys can read that. 2 local appraisers agreed with the value of the property being this, and this at the same day. That'd be like a review and an appraisal. So again, there's a lot of things that you can do to help support your case. Process could be completed in no more than 21 days. This is kind of a gauge, review of letter, gathering of information, field review ordered, rebuttal written, package submit. We work on like a probably 15 to 20-day turnaround time with most of these things. Not that we couldn't do it quicker. It's just that there's a lot that goes into it, and you're waiting on people to get things back, and it's just kind of something where, you know, it's not going to happen that quickly. Summary of process, again, you want to separate facts from fiction. You want to get everything on paper, gather all your reviewer's notes, everything that's done at the time of inspection, your original appraiser's information, all that stuff. Order the field review, compose your rebuttal, and then submit your package. The rebuttal is the most important thing. You want to poke holes in the claim letter. You've got to address everything specifically. You don't want to, you know, go around the bush about things. You don't want to, you know, kind of hide things. I mean, you got to be honest and upfront about this, because ultimately they will find out most of the time. Again, you might be able to squeeze one through every now and then, or you might be able to have an exception of, oh, they didn't find this, but you don't want to build your business on exceptions. You've got to build your business on fundamentally sound principles that work consistently. Proactive approach. Okay, so this is where it comes to, okay, well, hey, buddy, Brian, I haven't got my buyback now yet. What do I do now? Or I haven't got one yet. Okay, you can set up your company so it limits your collateral risk exposure. QC done at time inspection is used worth its weight in gold. Desk reviews at the time of origination. Field reviews, again, should be used limitedly. AVMs as a filtering tool to choose a desk review and a field review can be used. We have a new appraisal review process that we're actually just rolling out. It's been in some testing with some clients where we're actually essentially, eliminate. The idea and the concept is to eliminate the underwriter from the review appraisal process. Where we have staff review appraisers in house, so there's no purpose of an underwriter reviewing the review appraisal. We have the ability to do, as depth as review as any review appraiser could, let alone an underwriter. So we thought, okay, what client would want a review done to the extent where it would almost no doubt this thing's ready to close? And through testing, through process, we've got it to with one lender who was our first lender to adopt this process, where 95 out of 100 appraisals that we do for them get closed with no revisions. And that's because we are essentially doing all of the QC on the front end. We'll pull the core logic, order the desk review beforehand if necessary. We'll do, we'll pull an AVM and make sure that it's within a reasonable differential, because all the correspondents are going to have to pull the AVMs before they go and sell it off to their warehouse line and to the investor. All this QC is going to be done beforehand, and then we're providing all this information to you in the form of reviewers' notes that get sent with the original appraisal. And because of that, the underwriter gets this thing and they think, oh, this already has been revisioned. We've already had an appraiser review it. We already have all the comments, all those types of things. That's a very proactive approach that we come up with specifically to combat issues with potential buybacks. Well, sample claims letter and package, again, we're not using any samples today just because I have them, and we'll be happy to send you a copy. It's just that we're not going to record this, so it doesn't have to send 10,000 people. Let's do a little Q&A. So I know we're right at 32 minutes, and again, we try to be right on time every time. So if you guys have any questions, go ahead and fire these puppies off to Crystal. Crystal, you there?
Yes, I am here. Thank you.
Okay.
We do have a couple of questions that have come in, so if you just let me know when you're ready to get started with those, and I'll go ahead and fire away. Okay, great. We have a message from Jeff stating the following. He asks, if I get a repurchase request, should I hire an attorney, or can Coester Appraisal Group handle these for us?
Attorney, there's again, attorney. We're not attorneys. There's legal issues, and then there's a valuation rebuttal issue. So attorney would be if you're actually going to settle, hire an attorney. If you're just getting the initial rebuttal, come to us, because there's no point. You haven't got to a settlement yet. You haven't actually. This is just the initial kind of like, you have 21 days to respond, or you have 30 days to respond type deal. If you're going to have this what you already got and settled, attorney, because we don't handle those kind of settlement type situations. If you're going to do, if you're something where you get the initial response, like the initial claims letter, come to us, because we can handle that cheaper, better, and we're more efficient with those. And then we have appraisers, we have the underwriters, we have a whole collateral risk department of Bud Ryan, who's got years and years of experience doing these types of things. So we can handle a lot more effectively than an attorney who might be good, who actually would be better for just the settlement part of it. Sometimes you might have to buy back. Sometimes it's just a fee amount that's predetermined or something like that. So go ahead, next one.
Great. Okay. Yes, that answers that question pretty well. Thank you, Brian. And there's also another one from Bill here who asks, are these repurchase requests more prevalent with the lenders who are funding the loans or with the brokers who broker them? He just asked because he says he wouldn't think that the broker had to go through a management company and the lender reviewed the appraisal. Do you have any feedback regarding that question, Brian?
I have a broker. I mean, again, with credit risk, it could be different. With appraisal valuations, I mean, if you're a broker, you got to go through a management company. you had nothing to do with the appraisal selection ordering process outside of just placing the order, I would think the investor would not go back to you at all for this, unless I just wouldn't think, because you're not really involved in the process at all. They would probably go back to the management company before they go back to you.
Gotcha. Okay, great. And there's another point that Alan here made. He states that the original appraiser is not allowed to legally talk about their report without the client's permission. Maybe you could give a little more insight regarding that and, confirm or, give a little bit more support to the rest of the audience about whether or not that is a valid statement.
Original appraiser not allowed to talk to without the client. Most of the time, that is true. Depending on 90% of the time that is true. Most of the clients will be okay with that, and most of the time, the client is the person who is requesting this. Meaning, if we've got a situation where we're signed up with ABC lender, well, we're considered an agent of that lender. So if we go back to ABC appraiser, who did the appraisal for ABC lender, well, he can talk with us because they assigned us this task to do that. If it's from that becomes kind of tricky especially when these things are sold multiple times. We've had issues where the appraisers have refused to respond because of that, and we just don't include them in the response. But most of ours are direct from the original client, where we have an issue where, hypothetically a government service enterprise is going to want them to repurchase. They did this appraisal on origination retail. Okay, so the appraiser was working for them at the time, so they are the client. So it's relatively easy for us to go back. We've had issues where, there's a correspondent and a broker involved, and so essentially you have 4 parties involved. Gets a little tricky. Now, Alan is right. Gets a little tricky. Sometimes it's just not a applicable thing, and you just can't go back to the OA. That's 100% true.
Gotcha. Okay, great. Thank you for clearing that up. And there is a question that just came in from Nicholas. He says that he has been told that there are 2 recent federal district court decisions that hold an agency investor or MI company rescinding MI can use a retrospective appraisal as a basis of a cause of action and save fraud. Do you know the citations of these cases? It's a pretty detailed question, Brian. Do you have any knowledge or feedback regarding what Nicholas just said?
No, I don't know that.
Okay. Yeah, that seems to be something that we haven't heard before, Nicholas.
I could probably find out, but I really don't know.
Okay, great. And also, could you give just everybody a little bit more information about, I guess, our experience with repurchases and let them know, I guess, how qualified we are and how many we do, and do you have any other feedback regarding that or any other key points that you'd like for them to know?
We do about $700 a month, $700-800 a month, and we've got a whole department for them with review appraisers and trained rebuttalers. Most of them are licensed appraisers or have experience as an underwriter type DE background. We're approved with some top 5 lenders to handle repurchases. Been doing it for probably 5 to 6 years and can pretty much handle anything that they really need as far as credit risk or collateral risk, from a residential small to a large commercial property. Outside of that, it's pretty relatively simple. This is just a part of our core business that we do day to day.
Okay, great. And another one just came in asking,
I guess it was
go ahead.
Yes. I would say we wrote the policy manual for all regs for how to handle appraisal-related repurchases. So that's a pretty good.
Yeah, that's a pretty important point. Thanks for bringing that up.
Of how qualified we are.
Great, great, perfect. And there was one more question that came in also. Do our review appraisers work the market in which they are reviewing? For example, making sure they don't live like 4 hours away from the property or even out of state.
Depends. For the most part, yes. Depends on the area. Depends on the situation. For the most part, yes. And again, sometimes no. For our in-house reviewers, the answer is no, because they work in the office. We have some reviewers who work off-site in most of the major metropolitan areas. But we don't have an appraiser in every city in every in every city of every state in America. So I mean, for the most part, they're familiar with the area. Again, we rely on our staff appraisers and our reviewers, and also our vendors who are local. I mean, I just couldn't imagine a company that would have, there's 3,000 counties in the United States. I just couldn't imagine a company that would have a reviewer in every single little market area. Most of our appraisers are familiar. I mean, all of our appraisers are familiar with the areas in which they do. And then I would say, generally speaking, we've got pretty highly trained people too. So it's not an issue of necessarily they have to be familiar. Would you rather have somebody who lives 10 miles from the property but knows nothing about the review process, nothing about the appraisal rebuttal process, has done no training at all in the rebuttaling and repurchase work, or somebody who may live five hours away but is fully a licensed appraiser and is trained in how to handle these things? Our guys are probably a little more equipped to handle the situation. So, again, like with the training that we do for our lender clients for free, we do a lot more training internally, I mean, as you can imagine. So we've got some pretty good equipped guys who are relatively able to handle pretty much everything. It's not a concern.
Okay, great. And I'm sure that the established relationships that have been made between those appraisers and our company also help as well. So yeah, we would give the assignment to the most qualified person. Is that correct? Could you verify that?
Yeah, exactly. And then what I'll do is I'll put my contact information up here because we're about at 2:42, so we're a little over. I'll put my contact information up now, and so you can email me, you can phone me. That's my direct number. And also Bud Ryan, who's our Chief Credit Risk and Collateral Risk Officer, his contact information is on here. He's on a call today. He's busy on a RFP with another client and couldn't be available. But if you have any questions, you can email me at any time. I'll be happy to respond. And again, if you want samples and stuff like that, we'd be happy to send you some samples of some work we've done for other clients, whether it be collateral or credit risk type deal. And this webinar will probably be up in a couple hours on YouTube, so you'd be happy you can view it at any time. And do you have any closing statements, Crystal?
No, that's pretty much it. We got to thank you. So very, very good to get feedback from you all saying that you enjoyed it. So we thank you once again for being here. And Brian, I do have a couple of email addresses that are interested in getting those examples. So I'll go ahead and send those to you, and you can send those over. If anyone needs anything, feel free to send us your email address, and we'll go ahead and contact you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.